how are you feeling about your fight? Do you think that we're winning or losing?
There's good news and there's bad news. Let me start with the bad news. The bad news is that we dug ourselves a hole over the last 50 years that is very, very deep. And the amount of economic inequality and injustice in the United States, for example, that has been created, and not everything has gotten worse, right? But certainly if you look at economic inequality.
Oh yeah. It like productivity and wages diverged starting about 50 years ago when they went like in totally different directions.
That's right. And so we have built, we dug a hole. It's effectively a $55 trillion hole, which is the aggregate amount of money that has flowed incrementally from the bottom 90% of Americans to the top 1% over the last 50 years. It's around $2.5 trillion extra that flows from the bottom 90% to the top 1% today per year. And that the problem with that hole is that, inequality is much more than an economic inconvenience for the people who aren't well treated. It shreds the reciprocity norms that make social cohesion and democracy possible. And that's why our politics is so screwed up today, is that it is just an objective fact that for most of the people in the country, certainly the bottom 80 or 90%, they have been exploited in a really pretty terrible way for the last 30 or 40 years. And many of them have lost faith in democracy and government for reasonable reasons, right? Like that it's just a fact that if you were a
like,
median,
if you think you've been screwed,
you're probably
right.
You are correct. You have been screwed. And if you're angry at government for letting that happen, you have an absolute right to feel that way. You are correct. You got totally screwed. And the government of the United States of America aided and abetted that, for better or worse. It is just a fact. And people are pissed, and people on the left are pissed, and people on the right are pissed. And it is an open question whether our democracy will survive this self-inflicted wound. That's the bad news. The good news is that when I started on this journey in 2006, 7, 8, which is when I first started coming to terms with inequality, people didn't even recognize it was a problem. If you even raised it in polite company, people got angry. When I first started talking about raising the minimum wage, even the people on the left thought I had lost my mind. So, Andrew, here's the thing. There are 9,500 professional economists in the United States, something like that. When we debuted the $15 minimum wage, not one wrote in support. Not one came to our rescue. Not one published a big article in the New York Times saying this is absolutely the right thing to do. All this bullshit about it killing jobs is not true. It's just a scare tactic. This is the right thing to do. Andrew, when I came up with that idea, even the left-leaning economists who populate the sort of left infrastructure of activists thought we had lost our minds, right? Okay, if you fast forward to today, the economic look, Barack Obama was president for 8 years. Inequality rose under Barack Obama. It didn't decline. Yep. Why? Because he was surrounded by economists who were neoliberals. He was trapped in that neoliberal paradigm. And so here's the good news, is that consensus has almost entirely changed today. That everywhere you look, people are recognizing how badly neoliberalism has harmed the society, or market fundamentalism, trickle-down economics, or whatever you want to call it. Every university is standing up efforts to rethink capitalism. I mean, everywhere you go, there's another seminar or whatever it is on reimagining the economy, rethinking capitalism. The president of the United States went to the picket lines for the UAW workers, right? Unprecedented in American history. And so the good news is that 10 years ago, even the people who should have been fighting for the right stuff were paralyzed. And today they're all engaged in the fight. Like, look, why is the Biden administration the most transformational administration on economic policy since Roosevelt? Because they're the first administration since Reagan to break with neoliberal orthodoxy, right? That's a clean break. They just said, we don't buy this bullshit anymore. We're going to actually improve people's lives. All this nonsense about job killing it's just nonsense. It's just a red herring. And so that's the good news, is that we are in a moment of transformation. A lot of people, the economic and political consensus is rapidly changing, and there is real hope for real change. And it may be too late. It may be too late, which would be terrible and sad and awful for you and me and a lot of other people. But so that's my view, is that there's some bad news and some good news.
Hey YouTube, thanks for watching. Please do hit like and subscribe and hit that bell if you want to be notified every time a new episode drops. Thank you.